Greetings, humans.
Welcome to another episode of Humans of the Multiverse, where we share the stories of our friends from all over the globe.
We hope you find this conversation interesting and uplifting. Our goal is to bring people together, so if you enjoy the interview, we'd love to hear your comments.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.
This week, George Sakalaris returns to the multiverse for a biographical interview. We learn about the duality of his artistic nature and his Wall Street career.
We talk about why it's important to keep an open mind and share your ideas with others. Enjoy the show. Yep.
It was fun doing the live stream together, but we've been waiting for a chance to get to know you in more detail.
Exactly.
That's it. I'll try to go back all the way from 1973, and we'll lead you all the way through.
Perfect. You can tell us when you went to see Star Wars in theater or what?
19. I think I was. When was the first one out in the theater officially?
I think 79. So you'd have been 6 or 7 years old.
I think I saw the second. I saw the second one in the original second one in the theater.
Yeah. Original Star Wars, 1977.
77. Yeah. That I didn't see that in the theater. I saw the second one in the theater,
which would have been 79.
Cool.
Yeah.
Did that inspire a lifelong interest in outer space or science, or did it even chart? How was that?
I think I was naturally born in outer space, or at least thinking of outer space. So, you see, when you're born and raised in New Jersey, to people that don't really speak English that well, sometimes you have to be creative and start to dream about different things. So a lot of, especially in New Jersey, where everybody's a little bit different here, and when you have, I say, people that immigrate from another country that come to America, they kept a lot of their ideals, and they kept a lot of their heritage, which is different than a lot of the American idealism, where at first, and it's the same premise or so, but a lot of the culture is different. The food, the church especially was huge growing up. One of the things that we participated in, went to church, and the Greek Orthodox community in particular, the very tight-knit community where we do a lot of events within the church. Anything from different ministries to charity events related around the Greek Orthodox, the Greek religion. So a lot of that is different than my Catholic friends or my Jewish friends or my Baptist friends growing up. So why are you going to church on a Wednesday night kind of thing for Greek dancing? And they didn't, that's something that was different. So I think growing up like that, you're a little bit different. And it's either you can accept it or reject it. So I kind of I accepted it. This is who we are, and this is what I am.
So did you grow up with learning two languages at the same time?
Yeah, it was always, even growing up, going to kindergarten or pre-kindergarten, I would speak Greek American slang or say things like that nobody really understood. And some of the teachers were like, was he born in Greece? Where's he from? Like, no, he was born here. But, my grandmother, my grandfather, my entire family, they spoke Greek. So that's the way that I spoke. I spoke with a broken English accent, even though I was born here, because it's how you grew up. A lot of the words I would say were different. So it's an interesting thing. And a lot of the Greek community that grows up that way, that came here in the 70s or 50s, 60s, we have a very similar bond that way. Growing up in food restaurants, fighting with your father the entire time from when you're 13 all the way to you're 20 in college in a food restaurant, whether it be a diner or a chocolate store. So, we have we have very similar experiences, but that kind of shaped me into who I was, and learning the stories of the struggles in particular on how they came to this country during World War II and after World War II, and that entire struggle, even before that, kind of shaped me shaped me to who I am today. So, born in 1973, the world was different then, but that was only 20, 30 years removed from World War II. 25 years, 30 years, whatever it is. It's 30 years later, and not even 28 years later, I'm born. So the world was a completely different place. A lot of these people carried a lot of that trauma with them, and a lot of people had stories. A lot of people, that World War II, that's why a lot of people are in this country. I mean, the United States in particular. That's the way that I see it. I don't think too many people would have left Greece if it wasn't for World War II, because Greece is one of the most beautiful places on earth.
So your grandparents moved here first?
Yeah, my grandfather, he was born in Constantinople, 1920s. He was orphaned. He had run one way and his brother ran another, and his parents were killed during the Smyrna, the Constantinople occupation, or murder of Greek Orthodox Christians. So they took the land there, and he was orphaned, and he ran. He was under 10 years old, and he escaped to a small island. He got on a random boat and was raised by a random family on a small Greek island.
Wow.
So he was, I don't know, under 10, maybe 7, and his grandfather, his brother, my grandfather's brother, had escaped, and my grandfather didn't even know it. And my grandfather's brother ended up in Venezuela somehow. Randomly got on a boat and made it there. Yep. Then in 1980s, he called, just to sum it up, he called Asbury Park, New Jersey, where my family moved to, asking for my grandfather, and that's how they reunited. And in the 80s, somehow, he found my grandfather in Asbury Park.
Wow. So that was after 50 or almost 60 years that they split in the 1920s as kids, completely different continents, and somehow he reconnected after that long.
It's an incredible story. My grandfather in particular, after growing up on a random island by random people, then the war started, and he joined the Greek Navy, and he started fighting Nazis there. And he was picked up by an American boat after his boat was destroyed. He became a citizen on the ship without even speaking English. They were swarm in right there so he was in the American Navy.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, and then from there, he somehow ends up in Japan, fighting in Iwo Jima. His story in particular is incredible. And here's a man who never complained once after his ship was destroyed, after his parents were killed, like an incredible human being. So, younger, my grandmother would say, my grandfather would say, don't tell the kids these stories. And my grandmother was like, no, they need to know. So this is kind of, these kind of stories, like, it makes you think as a young child, how fortunate I am not to have grown up like that.
Sacrifice, that he made.
Yeah, and my grandmother's father was a priest in Turkey, in Çeşme, Turkey, Izmir, that whole Smyrna area in Izmir, and they threatened to behead him, and he had to escape. He made it back to Athens, and they reassigned him to Kalamata, where they all grew up in Kalamata, and where all the olives come from. But that's more, in the same type of thing where World War II, they devastated Kalamata in Greece. Same kind of thing. My grandmother, her parents died, everybody was dead, and she eventually was fixed up with my grandfather, and that's how they got here.
Amazing. I wonder if I'd never heard of that before. I wonder if that was a regular practice where, like, back in World War II, come across a stranded Allied soldier or Navy seaman, and then you're like, well, you're in the Navy, so what's your job? Okay, great, you're in. I bet that happened more than I realized.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting. Some of the boats, and I have some pictures and things of that nature. There's a couple pictures of him in the American Navy. He was on the USS Haggard. It was called the name of the boat. And from what I understand, looking at the records, that was torpedoed, and half of his crew died, and he survived. So it's kind of like you listen to these stories and be like, wow, this man survived like ludicrous amounts of
carnage.
death.
Yeah.
Carnage. Brutal.
Yeah, They're the reason. There's a reason they call that our greatest generation, right?
These days, I don't think they make people like this, and it's unfortunate. Like I don't think I could live up to something like that, no matter how great or whatever it is that I think I am. I'm nowhere near that. And that man didn't say one word. He didn't complain at all. I've never seen anything like a rock. Like didn't even matter.
Yeah, when I think back to my experiences in the military, it's just I've been to war, but it does not compare to what those guys were doing back then, or in Vietnam, or anything like that. Just different type of hardness that you need. And it's from my experience, the ones that don't talk about it very much and don't want you to tell the story are the ones who did the real stuff.
Yeah, and that's a PTSD on a different level. Where he didn't lose his mind and drink and do any of that stuff. He had all asbestos in his lungs from all the ships and all of that, all of that carnage and war and all of that. So in the 90s, 1991, he passed away. I was 18 at the time, but I carried all of that with me, from when I was 10 years old, when they start talking about these type of things till now. And I'll never forget it. And I'm proud to have a bloodline like that, where, these people fought, didn't give up, didn't quit, and were like, literally eat cardboard and drink nails, like eat just drywall like this and just finish it down with a couple of nails. Like,
when that's what you have to do to survive, people find a way. It's an incredible tale of resilience.
Yeah. And it's an amazing thing. So, he came out of the Navy and ended up back in New York somehow, and you try to figure out how. And he's like, I just went here and there, and that was it. It wasn't like, oh, here's how we did it. It was like, yeah, we just after the war, we came back here, and somehow I'm in the Bronx, and I'm like, okay, that's great. I mean,
what was your dad's relationship with your grandfather? I know, like, having a combat veteran as a dad might not be the easiest thing, or was it? I don't know.
Yeah, so my that was on my mother's side. Now my father's side, my grandfather, my father's side was in the Navy as well, and he joined the American Navy. And when he was done with the Navy, he came back to Boston, where his whole family had immigrated into. And then he heard there's a couple of Greeks that had some businesses down in Asbury Park on the boardwalk. So he left his family there. Just left everybody, came down to Asbury Park in the 40s and started working in a donut shop. And then someone was selling a chocolate store, and he bought a small chocolate store, and they started making homemade chocolate, which we still own today. So, these people are insane. Like, this is insanity. Just like everybody just leaves their family behind, just like, hey, forget it. I'll see you later. And then my father then was a military man as well, but he joined the Army, and he started working in Germany during Vietnam. I guess it would be intelligence, Army intelligence. He worked with the teletype, the original, I guess, internet teletype, I think it was called. So he was working in intelligence in the Army, and then, then he was done with his time there and came back and started working in the candy store and became a master chocolate maker.
So Very cool. You ever do a stint working in the chocolate store as a young kid? Work summers in there? A little about confectionery yourself?
When you're a Greek American kid and your father owns a food place, you have no choice. From 13 years old until the time I graduated college, it was weekends, holidays. We had a store on the boardwalk as well. So in the summertime, it was jam-packed. It was, from 13. Didn't matter if I had wrestling practice. Didn't matter after baseball, after wrestling, before baseball practice. Then baseball practice is at 10. You're at the store at 12, and that's it. Like, no time to eat. I'm 15 years old. This is not normal. And that is normal. That's what goes on. So this is kind of like embedded in me. Like, okay, I don't want to work, but I just played Little League, or just played Babe Ruth League baseball, and we won, and it didn't matter. We won. Oh, you won? Great. We got candy to make. This is like,
here's your apron.
Yeah, I think, exactly 100%. I'll be like, okay, great, you won. How'd you do? Oh, didn't do that good? Well, you suck. Let's go make candy. I mean, this is what goes on.
That's what you said earlier about you had a similar bond to other people, your Greek people your age in the area, when you said fighting with your dad in the restaurant.
That's it.
Was there any other like standards or different things it was like having a Greek father that's different than being American, being straight up American?
Yeah, none of my friends owned any kind of food businesses. They would have the weekends off, and they would have holidays off. They didn't have to work like that with their father. None of my friends really growing up had any kind of, besides the Greek kids in the church, the Greek American kids in the church. Other than that, my American friends, let's say, the non-Greek kids, it was completely different. So the holidays, it was especially Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, 13, 14, my friends were doing whatever they wanted, and I'm working in the store. So, it's kind of the way I grew up. It didn't, again, wrestling practice, I would get the crap kicked out of me, or wrestling match. And then I was at the store at 1 o'clock or whatever after wrestling meet. So you grew up a little bit different. And a lot of the diner owners, specifically the kids and diner owners, and that's specifically the diner owners, the food owners, the food store owners, that's how we kind of grew up. So we have this little secret bond between us all. It's that war at the war at the store.
Exactly. And sharing that hard work and overcoming obstacles like that, no matter what line of work you're in, but especially in a restaurant, that's a tough line of work, dealing with from the back to the front. So that's definitely a good bonding experience.
Yeah, if my father was a lawyer, it would have been a completely different thing. But if he was an accountant, it would have been great. But no, I wouldn't have to be in the office running numbers and doing reviewing financial documents.
Would you change it to your dad
Never.
being okay? I didn't think so.
I don't regret anything I've ever done in my life. And those were the decisions that I made. I don't think anybody should regret anything unless they did something on purpose to hurt somebody. And I think you should repent, and then you should definitely regret it. But any kind of mistake you made, driving a car, whatever it is, you get in an accident, even dumb things like throwing snowballs at the buses that used to drive by. I mean, look, that's little innocent stuff, whatever. I mean, I don't regret anything. There's nothing that I can say that, yeah, you could sit here all day long and say, oh, I should have bought Bitcoin in 2010 instead of 2000. Yeah, I mean, you could sit here all day long and say, oh, only if I trained harder, maybe I could have made the minor leagues or the pros. If you did that, all you would do is live in the past instead of the present, and you wouldn't be able to really look towards the future. You're sitting here in the past. You're not focusing on the present so you can create a proper future. So, yeah, I mean, look, instead of buying Bitcoin in 2017, 18, I should have bought it in 2010. I should have held on to Amazon when I bought Amazon originally, right after the IPO, and just held it forever. I shouldn't have just traded it, for instance. You could sit here all day long and say, oh, I should have done this. I shouldn't have dated this girl. I should have done this. I should have went to this college. I should have done, or I should have bought more of the. It would be, I shouldn't have eaten that much food between 1987 and whatever. So that's why I regret nothing, and I remember the past to try to use it for now, the present. Okay, as an experience, and then try to use that to create try to create the future.
That's a really good point. And it's different. You can get trapped in between the past and the future. And that's different from actually living in the present. Because when you get trapped in the past, and I like your point about, okay, if you identify any time periods where you hurt somebody, whether accidentally or on purpose, that's where the feeling of remorse comes from. It's natural instinct to feel remorse about that. That's okay. And that's good, because perhaps you should seek forgiveness, right? But as far as any other thing, if I rewinded back to 18, I could have tried to become a basketball star, or this
Yeah.
star or that star, right? If I could rewind it back to 18, you could imagine 10 different things you could have become an expert at. But it's okay if you're not an expert at any of those things today. That's living in the moment, in the present.
I could have invented the internet. I could have invented Amazon. I called it something else. There's so many things you could sit here, and a lot of that unfortunately is revolved around money.
Yep.
I think when a lot of people look back, they always tend to focus on the success that they should have had, or I should have done this related to money. A lot of times, like, oh, I shouldn't have married this one, but I shouldn't have dated this girl. But in the same respect, you have two beautiful children. So it's not that you shouldn't have; that's what you did.
Yeah. Typically, I know of people who work in hospice and stuff like that, and what they say is that it reverts once you're in hospice. It's I wish I took more time for myself and my family. I wish I, took it easy and relaxed a little bit and that kind of thing. I wanted to ask about, so growing up in New Jersey, baseball, obviously every kid your age was probably playing baseball, but I didn't know wrestling was big in New Jersey. Can you tell me about which one you liked better and what those were like for you?
Baseball, I liked much better. I only wrestled to keep me in shape for baseball.
Got it.
Off-season.
Nothing will keep you in shape like wrestling, though.
And I used to get beat up, and I was wrestling 2 weight classes above me because we had nobody at these weight classes. And I weighed 103 pounds my freshman year in high school.
Nice.
My senior year, I technically could have wrestled 119 or 125, and I was wrestling 135, 140, 145 because we had 6 guys on the team. So there's certain towns where wrestling is really big and certain town where it's not. My town was not big at all. But we had a group of 7 people to fill 13, 14 slots or whatever it is. So, it was good. It was really good. But I got beat up.
I think that's everyone gets their butt kicked in wrestling.
There's no going home to take an ice bath. You got to report to work immediately after that. It's the apron.
Yeah, there was no break. There was no break. Like, I would just get beat up and then go in, like, physically beat up, and then excuse me, I'm still dealing with this cough a little bit, but then I then get mentally beat up at the candy store. So
could you at least fill up on chocolate or
yeah.
Okay.
It was a good place. Carbo load after you expended all your energy. You can eat candy all night.
The good thing is we still have the store, so we have unlimited chocolate.
Very cool. So baseball must have been a breeze compared to wrestling. Why did you like it better?
Baseball, it was a team sport. I played with my friends. We, I just like the sport a lot better, and the playing in the summer as opposed to wrestling in a gym in the winter. You're outdoors all day long, and I was pretty good. It wasn't great, but it was a lot more fun for me playing with my team, playing that sport in general.
Yeah, there's a romantic aspect to baseball too. It's kind of magical in a way for a lot of people that grew up with it. Did you grow up like, idolizing Yankees and different guys, that kind of thing?
Yeah, diehard Yankee fan. Knew all the players, had all the baseball cards, went to the games. So many Yankee games growing up because they weren't that good. And it was easy to get tickets. Now you can go to 1 or 2 games a year, and it's much more difficult.
The new stadium I've been to, which is beautiful, but I had never been to the old stadium. What's the difference?
Wow, the old stadium was so vintage. It was that stadium. I wish they never tore that down because that was the best stadium.
It could have made a museum, I imagine, but
yeah, it was awesome. That stadium was awesome. You had great seats. It was less VIP, so it wasn't as VIP, and that's what they built it around now, like more VIP. And there's a premium club. The tickets are insane, but you get full buffet there with any kind of food you want. The corporate seats and all that. The old stadium was vintage, classic. Oh, it was old. It was old. It was an awesome stadium.
It has a history. I believe buildings retain, energy and history, and you can feel it when you go inside. And so there must have been a measure of that as well,
Absolutely. I mean, you have the ghosts of Babe Ruth and all of this. So, well, anything will it will retain its energy. And honestly, that's how everything works: energy, frequency, vibration. So when you walk in to these places, you get a feeling of some sort, you should. It gives me, the goosebumps and all of these things that people say. All that's for a reason, because you can actually feel the energy there, and you can feel a lot of the past energies that still remain. Everything,
Memories
yeah,
of all
everything
the
vibrates.
emotions.
Everything vibrates. Everything's in motion. So all of this energy is contained in walls. Just because the wall doesn't move doesn't mean that it's not moving. It vibrates just at extremely slow rate. So that's why something is, and if you can match that vibration, you can go through the wall, but you can't match that vibration, because at least we haven't been able to do that yet. So now you just break it.
So you're grinding away, basically becoming a pastry chef, as well as doing wrestling and baseball, and you're in school, and you're thinking, I can't wait to be an adult and get out of here and do my own thing. What were you wanting to do?
I really wanted to be an architect, but I just never pursued that. My father said, we have these businesses, what do you want to be an architect for, kind of thing. So I just found my way into, after high school, after college, I found my way into a stockbroker, the Wall Street.
Right.
Did you actually work on the floor of the stock exchange?
No, I just was a stockbroker, dealt with initial public offerings later in my career, and I had done that for about 7-8 years. The last time we spoke, I had mentioned that September 11th was my last day. I gave that. It was first off, it's a huge burnout business.
I can imagine.
Was working in Manhattan, and it's just a constant. I don't like asking people for money. I like giving people money, if I could. So it's really not. It wasn't satisfying for me just to make 250 grand, 500 grand a year, being a stockbroker, while other people. It wasn't satisfying at all. I actually hated it. And after September 11th, I didn't work I was doing some imports, Greek wine imports, and just passing my time working with one of my friends. And then, I found my way back into the energy business, working in engineering and project development, management, program management. And I've been doing that for the last almost 20 years.
And what kind of projects are we talking?
Anything energy related, energy efficiency, advanced energy solutions, anything to do with something as simple as lighting to more complex cogeneration systems, HVAC related, some even more advanced energy systems when I worked with Lockheed Martin, focusing on microgrids and energy storage systems. So solar is the storage, but mostly energy efficiency type projects where we work with contractors and utilities across the country, utilities in particular, and work on their programs and their program management.
Okay. And so, I got to go here. I'm sorry, but Lockheed Martin has a reputation for having, technology, particularly energy related, that, we don't know about. Do you know anything about that? Or did you ever come across anything like that?
No, I was working on developing projects utilizing, like I said, the program management, working with utilities. But they did, from what the last I heard, probably maybe 5 or 6 years ago, you probably can find it, a press release about a one of some type of micro nuclear fission generator of some sort. I don't know how that's progressed. I can imagine that not only Lockheed, I can imagine there's plenty of. I honestly think the technology you see today is probably 20 years old, and that they have an incredible amount of technology that's been hidden throughout the world throughout the last decades.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. And so you were speaking about energy earlier as it relates to like, vibration and frequency and how it like can connect to a place. Did you start formulating these ideas like working in this industry or was this no? Okay.
So growing up, one of my aunts was an artist in Greece, and my mother was an artist, and I had a natural ability to draw, and specifically landscape architecture, and I draw not so much abstract but exact. I'm a realist. I draw realistic landscapes and different, or at least I did. It's been a while, so those are the type of things that I started to draw and would be able to draw. So I think you could take it back to me thinking differently than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I started to, as an artist, you start to explore different different aspects of life, right? And I started to read a lot, and I started to read the ancient philosophers, the Aristotles, Plato, and the Hermes Trismegistus and things like that. So that really, and then the last time we spoke, I think when I started to really expand my thought process was reading Graham Hancock's first book, or in 1997, Eric von Donigan's books, and even Zecharia Sitchin, where he proposed something completely different, whether it's true or not, whether they say that he mistranslated everything. It didn't matter. That doesn't matter to me. He actually presented a theory that was completely different than anybody else or anything that I've ever heard. So I'm like, wow, this is an interesting theory. And then from the 90s, I would say is really when I started to start questioning everything and the way everything was. I would say early, if not 1990. And I continue to, and then from there, I'm like, okay, how does this all work? And nobody had any answers. Nobody really, they were like, yeah, what do you want to know this kind of stuff for? What's wrong with you? You're crazy. So from there.
So, and I want to make a distinguishment here. So you're saying it's pretty much as soon as you became an adult, you're 18 years old, you're questioning these things. Yet the whole time you were putting together a professional career as a stockbroker, stock trader, making lots of money. You've got a title and a salary. You got your commute. Yet you inherently knew that somehow you instinctually knew that this isn't the answer to life in the universe, and this isn't 100%. The meaning of everything. Okay, and you were just self-propelled to keep looking into those things, start reading ancient texts as a young adult.
Absolutely. And then there were times where I would go to Greece when I was younger, and particularly in 1987. In 1987, I spent 3 months with my aunt in Greece. She had an apartment in Athens, and I spent a lot of time there. And I would roam Athens in 1987, 14-year-old boy by myself. Now, here's an ancient city, and I would walk to the Acropolis, and we would look at these structures and the architecture, and like, wait a minute. And then she took me all around Greece to all these different ancient sites. So I'm like, wow, these sites are thousands of years old, but they're still standing here. Maybe it was even before 1990. It was that trip to Greece where that kind of opened my eyes to something completely different, because when I went to Greece, there's guys with guns in the airport. Like, I didn't see that. I never saw that before. Okay, there was military men in the airport, because that's the way the rest of the world works. I'm like, what do you mean there's no water here? What do you mean there's no air conditioning? So then I'm like, wait a minute, So from maybe when I started in 1987 is really in 1988 in 1990 it progressed into like, okay, great. So when I went to college, I was so bored. I'm like, this is all this, you're telling me what it is, but you've never been there. They were in one, but I'll never forget. There was an ancient history course, and they were talking about Greece and this and that. I said, "Well, have you ever been there?" And you're telling me about it. I've been there, and this started this was a problem because that's what it said in the book. I'm like, "Well, that's I've been there. I spent 3 months there. I've been to these places." I said, "Well, what this is some of the Oracle of Delphi, for instance." They said, "Oh, these are myths and all that." I'm like, "You don't know that. You've never been there. You don't feel the energy there. You've never traveled there, spent any time there. These are what you regurgitate from this book. This book could change next year, and then you're telling a different story." And they don't like me. They don't like me.
Go ahead,
Take a
Mike.
good moment to distinguish between scientists and historians, all due to respect historians. They are scholars, they are academics. Historians write about what other historians figured out. It's scientists that figure out what happened in the past. Just saying.
Yeah, absolutely. For instance, the whole pyramid in Giza and all of this, I've never been there. But when people speak about their theory on this, like, yeah, why not? You know, and the Egyptologists and the mainstream media says, "Oh, this is the way it is. These guys built these pyramids. They built it with their hands." And like I mentioned, the guy's got a toga set and the sandals, and he's carrying 500-ton blocks. It's not probable. So you could say, okay, that's great, but unless you were there with a video camera or something, you can't say that this is the way that it is. You could say these are our theories, and that there are other theories. I accept that. Maybe they did do that. Maybe they didn't. Maybe those pyramids are 10,000 years old. Maybe a lot of these sites are hundreds of thousands of years old. So that's why I appreciated the Graham Hancocks of the world and those guys in the 90s, and Eric von Däniken and those kind of alternative researchers. They presented a different idea, and I always thought, why not? It kind of makes sense. They weren't proposing. Well, Eric von Däniken was asking questions too. He proposed questions of, what if this happened? What if that happened? I'm like, why not? Yep. What if that did happen? You can't say otherwise. So really, in the late 80s or early 90s is when I started to disconnect myself from the propaganda. It's the best way to put it. And I've always continued, and I'm going to say it's gotten worse and worse and worse.
It's better and worse at the same time.
It's better because you're free, but it's worse because you have no answers.
Yeah, that must have been.
People look at
here you are thinking about all this stuff, but you're like straight up in the matrix at the same time, working on Wall Street. And I can imagine the duality of that, like weighing on your mind, while you're in it. So was it 9/11 was basically just, okay, I'm done with this?
Yeah, absolutely. That was it. That was my last day. We came back off the ferry and signed a piece of paper that said I was a survivor of a terrorist attack, and either the NSA or whoever with FBI, whatever. I guess it was Homeland Security at the time before they were really. But it was like that. They had pieces of paper that you had to sign and put on a survivor list. So kind of shit that kind of scares the shit out of you for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. And
I can imagine. Could you take us back to that day for you, if you don't mind?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was the nicest day of the year. I was on the ferry. I usually take the 6:30 ferry, and I took the 7 o'clock ferry for no reason. And I mean, beautiful day, no wind, crystal clear. It was a perfect day to see everything. So, we progressed. You saw they said that something hit the building. We all went outside on the deck of the ferry, and then we saw the second plane hit the building. I was running a little late that day, so I watched it all. And then we started walking up Wall Street and come back down. Everybody ran back down, got on the ferry. A lot of people didn't return from my town. So we get back on the ferry, we load everybody else back, and we're sitting in the harbor, and we watch the buildings fall.
Wow.
So
could you hear it too?
It was total.
Obviously, but it's just crazy.
People, you could see everything. It was right there. It was right in front of my face. A lot of people were just running and jumping on the ferry. They were getting on different ferries. You were in shock, and then somebody on the ferry was like, another plane just hit the Pentagon, right? Yeah, the Pentagon. And we're like, oh my God, what's going on here? So it was a total shock. I mean, thank God, I wasn't in those buildings or in the subway at the time or part of that. And all the people that passed away and lost their family and all of that. That was probably one of the most tragic. That is probably the most tragic thing I've ever been a part of, and hopefully, no one has to go through an experience like that again. And I didn't even get the worst of it. So many other people got family members and all of that. So I could just tell you that a lot of people in the town of Middletown here, where I live, were affected by it, and it's a tragedy.
Was there? I mean, what kind of in the moment, like what kind of speculation or anything was going on? Like even sitting on the ferry, where people asked him what's going on
immediately that you were going to quit your job right then and there. You said, "This is it."
No, but the next day, the city, everything shut down. The city was shut down. The stock exchange was shut down, and didn't know what to do after that. I was like, what are we going to do now? I'm not going back in the city. I can't go back in the city. I'm not going back. I'm not doing this and that. And again, it was like I wasn't happy with what I was doing anyway, but it was a bad time in my life for the next 2 years, because I'm like, I don't want to, everything that I tried to do, everything that was working for, yeah, maybe I could have done it from New Jersey and all of that stuff. And I'm sure if I was just an asshole or I didn't care, and I'm like, I'm just going to go back to making money, but I wasn't that guy. So I was never happy doing that in the first place. And that kind of was like, okay, you know what? I'm done. I'll figure something else out. So like I said, I just did wine importing and worked with one of my friends for a while. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then I'm like, okay, after about 2 years, I'm like, all right, I was better, so to speak, and found my way into the energy business, the commodity business, and working like that.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was a tragedy. And like I said, I'm fortunate enough just to have witnessed it and not have been affected like so many other people.
You were very nearby.
Yeah, I was right there. If papers were falling down, you could see all of everything. Everything that you saw on TV, I saw in person. Mm-hmm. Just like so many other millions of people or thousands of people that were standing around there. And then from there, you start watching the news, and I was seeing they knew who did it right away, which was kind of like, okay, yeah, how do you know? How come you didn't know this before? They knew how it was done, and then the kicker to me is they found a passport to one of the hijackers in the street of Manhattan. Okay, now let's be real here. I saw the whole thing. I mean, two buildings went straight down their own footprint.
Yep.
And you found the passport. What did he throw it out the window? Come on, man. So let's be serious here. You found the guy's passport's indestructible. I guess the passports don't explode. They don't blow it. Nothing. They're good forever. Yep. So then I started questioning that. Like, okay, who knew what, when they knew it, and what's going on here for real?
Yeah, that happened. Well, I mean, a few years later when the internet came along with YouTube and whatnot, that's when I started saying, hey, what the heck? Because you start seeing documentaries come out about that kind of stuff. To what degree do you take that kind of stuff seriously, being somebody who was actually there, the whole 9/11 conspiracy theory?
Well, I don't know. There's something, I don't have my own theories, but something doesn't make sense. Like, to me, I'm questioning that. Either you knew about it and let it happen, or you were part of it, or whatever the problem, whatever did happen again. Maybe we'll never know unless we get, Trump to declassify everything, like allegedly he's doing with the JFK, RFK, and MLK files.
Supposedly.
He signed allegedly That's what they said. He signed an executive order to release this information. But it's been 70, whatever it's been now, since those murders. A lot of those people aren't alive. So even if you did have a huge conspiracy, there's no one's going to take the fall for it. There's no accountability. You just know what happened 60 years, 60 years later, you're like, oh, these people did it. Oh, they're dead.
That's often why they redact that stuff for 70 years at a time or 100 years at a time. And they classify stuff and go like, and then say 70 years later. And that's the idea, right?
Look, two of the biggest buildings in the world fell into their own footprint. 3 of them, actually. Building 7.
Mm-hmm.
And
2 planes, 3 buildings.
2 planes, 3 buildings, which would make sense if one building fell on the other building and then that building fell too. There's things that I question. I don't know. I have no answer for it. The passport, to me, that was the trigger for me. Like, wait a minute. There's no way, man. There's absolutely no way.
What got me, the trigger for me was like that Tower 7, watching that basically pancake down, however long it was later. The explanation was very poor. And supposedly, I'm just winging it off the top of my head, but there was some, documents that we're trying to get rid of in that building. I don't want to speak out of term, but like supposedly there was like, some offices that could have wanted to be destroyed that day in that building.
Yeah, they had lost what, $3 trillion a couple days before.
Right. There was literally what's his name? There's like a video of him saying that on TV, like, oh, we don't know what happened to $3 trillion next day, 9/11. I can't remember who said that. I forget.
It was Donald Rumsfeld.
Rumsfeld. Yeah, absolutely. So, these are the things that make people question. And anybody that questions any of that becomes a theorist or a conspiracy theorist. When really it's nothing more than a conspiracy, and you're theorizing about who did it because you don't have all. So anybody that questions anything automatically becomes the conspiracy theorist.
Right.
And that's the term they use to throw you off the conspiracy. Even though, in my opinion, they'll even create false narratives to make it look even more ridiculous, just to distract you from what the real conspiracy is.
I've also noticed that it seems like any of us who look into the true nature of reality and the true nature of things, I never really set out to look for new conspiracies to theorize about. I just want to figure out what's actually going on in the world. And when you look at who's doing what over time, history repeats itself, patterns repeat themselves. It's pretty easy to conclude that there's at least some form of conspiracy or another going on in various different ways, has been going on for all of humanity.
Yeah, it's not new stuff.
No, all you have to do is read their writings because they tell you what they're going to do before they do it. Anybody that pays attention to the writings and you start reading these things and you start reading about there's plenty of old books, and we could sit here and talk about hours about this. So, some of the writings from recent 2010 to 2015, and you start reading from the John Hopkins publications. They're like, wait a minute, what is this? Like, what do you mean SPARS virus 2025 to 2028? And you start to read, and then there's a blueprint. So the thing about evil and the thing about specific, being that you're given the free will to make your own choice, you could choose positive or negative and create a positive experience or a negative experience. Because you have that inherent free will, you have to choose. Okay, so when evil presents itself to you, they need to tell you what they're doing so that you accept it. So either you choose to participate into that evil or you choose not to. So that's why a lot of times they telegraph what they're going to do. It's almost like they have a blueprint or a playbook, and they put it on the shelf behind them, and they're like, okay, time to run this playbook. We already told them what we're going to do, and they can't stop us. So a lot of that's the conspiracy in the book that they planned and wrote. And the theory is like, wait a minute, I read this, and then that's how it starts.
People buy the narrative because they've been preconditioned into it. They've been pre-exposed to that blueprint. And when they execute the narrative, people accept it without question.
And the
I think
easiest way to do that is pay millions of dollars a year to people to go on TV and call yourself a broadcaster or a news agency, and you read whatever you're told to write, and people just sit there and like, wow, it was great.
Mhm.
Did you hear this? Did you hear? So yeah, that's how it works all day long. It's really, really simple to do, and they control them with money.
Yeah, and you can interchange that playbook with like Hollywood movies, mainstream news. Nowadays, I'm seeing it on YouTube because people are losing faith in Hollywood. They're losing faith in mainstream news. So you're seeing that same playbook go onto X and onto YouTube. It's just interesting how it evolves like that.
Yeah, and they'll never stop. It'll never stop. They're going to continue to run the same playbook, and people like us will recognize it. And there's other, a lot more people now are broadcasting, or at least, being independent journalists and trying to expose the truth. And they are, and it's quite impressive. And there's a big battle between guys like, James O'Keefe, for instance. He goes out undercover, and he's an independent journalist, and guys like Alex Jones, and these people are growing in fame when they used to be all conspiracy theorists. Now they're like, wait a minute, a lot of these things that you've been talking about came true. So they just read the playbook, they understand the playbook.
Yeah, same thing with Graham Hancock. Similarly,
Yes.
he's starting to gain more notoriety and that kind of thing, and become more commonly accepted. How do you feel about the mainstream archaeology history narrative and the conspiracy behind that? Do you think there's a deliberate cover up of like our past?
I believe definitely. And like I said, you're an educator for 30 years, and you've been reading a book and educating thousands of kids in college or in high school. You've been telling them this is the way it is. Now you've lied to them for 30 years. So yeah, I mean, at some point you're like, wait a minute, I should have questioned this or whatever it is. And then then they would have guilt because they should have questioned it, knowing that. So yeah, I do believe it keeps people's jobs, keeps people employed, and it keeps people under control. Because if you really knew that 100,000 years ago there was a previous civilization on this earth, and we were wiped out in this way, and we developed technology, and this is why, people will be hesitant to repeat that. But people want money. People love money, so they're going to create as much as they want so they can maximize their profit. And if Atlantis was real, like I suppose it was, and they destroyed it themselves through greed and technology, like they say, and maybe they destroyed themselves, maybe a meteor hit, who knows? Either way, if you did know the real truth, then you would, so many millions of people would be hesitant to buy into their system of control.
It's a good point, and I think that's why it's important to maintain the idea that this is the first time we've ever invented technology or money or any of that. Because when you think about it, okay, if you told everybody that they had invented money and technology 100,000 years ago, we still have to go to work today, probably, right? Or are the control authority figures just afraid that people would begin to question, wait a minute, if all this technology existed before, does that mean that the only way to do it is the way we're doing it today? It would kind of cause everybody to stop and think and reconsider.
Yeah, if there was a box that I put outside my house that generated free energy, there would be no taxes to pay on any of the electricity that I used. There would be no reason to tax you. There would be no reason to control you. There would be no jobs also to support their businesses, their power plants. There would be no stock market utilities that trade on stock markets. So maybe honestly, if you really think deeply about it, maybe human beings aren't capable of controlling themselves with that type of technology. Okay, so to some respect, let's say the whole UFO theory is true, and they re-engineered one of the crashed Roswell in 1974. Let's say 1955, they figured it out for argument's sake. Okay, and they figured out how these fly, and now they can recreate one somewhat. Maybe they don't have all of the pieces, but they have some idea. And let's say over the next 50 years they figured it out. So in 2000, for argument's sake, they were actually able to recreate a perfect recreation of a UFO that from Roswell. Now everybody can travel wherever they want. Anybody can go anywhere. I don't even need to live in this house. I could go land my spaceship in the Peloponnesos in Greece and just live there. I don't need a hotel. I don't need to go online. I don't need to go to Expedia, book my tickets.
Yep.
I don't need to book my tickets to the airport. Okay, I don't have to go through the TSA. I don't need to pack any bags. I don't need to rent rooms. I don't need to travel to the airport. All of that oil and gas that's used to transport everything, all the electricity is used to book all these things, all these hotels that are everywhere, gone. You don't need any of that. So maybe human beings would abuse that to some respect.
I think
Well,
you're probably right.
When I
So-
look at people driving regular automobiles out there,
Yes,
I stop and question, okay, these people don't need to be in control of space-time manipulation. It's going to be bad. They're already distracted looking at cell phones in a regular car.
yeah. So maybe it's in the same respect. Yeah, it's hidden for a reason, for control, but also,
Yeah.
I mean, people do not behave themselves. And if you had a spaceship and you were able to UFO recreation or whatever it was,
Be bad.
think about how ludicrous it was. It would be, everybody would just be like chilling on the beach somewhere in Tahiti or Greece, or you want to see Sicily, you go to Sicily for the weekend and just chill. You don't need a hotel, you just land your thing and you're chilling on the beach. So think about, no one would work, no one would do anything. They would just be traveling all over the place. Maybe that's good, but in the same respect, I don't think humans are capable of self-control enough to utilize that technology properly.
Yeah, typically humans function well under like a structured system that has rules and that kind of thing. And it would be an interesting experiment to see how that. It's possible that happened in an earlier iteration of humanity,
Absolutely.
and I wonder how it went for them. Obviously, they're still not here, so maybe it didn't go well. Or,
Well, maybe they are here. It's maybe we or them, but just like Graham Hancock says, we're a civilization with amnesia. So maybe we're just a byproduct of them, and we're just not part of that system. So we weren't taught about that system, and we're disconnected from it. So you never know. But I honestly don't have much faith in humans as a whole, because 75% of these of the humans would take advantage of it. It would be a total disaster.
yeah, I never thought of it that way.
I agree. Maybe slightly pessimistic, but I think it's more realistic than anything.
Yeah, and by no means am I trying to be pessimistic. This is an alternative theory of why, outside of the typical, control you for money, control you so for this or that or whatever, it could be part of it where, I just, you're not ready for this kind of thing, and we're not going to give it to you. So that's a completely deeper theory.
I don't even think it's pessimistic if you just look at patterns of human behavior and why we can't have nice things today. It's like Mike was saying, like people can't even drive their cars undistracted.
Yeah, there wouldn't be building jails everywhere if human beings could behave themselves.
It's true. It's true. I wanted to go back to Greece. How many times have you been to Greece? Do you go there often?
Yeah, a lot. I went the last 2. I didn't go for 3-4 years because of the COVID hysteria. I'm not wearing masks. I'm not doing any of that stuff. So
right.
And if they try to bring that playbook back, I think that's one of the things that they won't be successful with. They'll get some people, but I think a lot more people. So I took my children the last 2 years. We went to one island, and I took them around a little bit and showed them different parts, and went back to where my family came from. We went last year, and we're going August this year.
Is there a favorite like area or favorite monument or favorite place you just had to take your kids to when you went? Or
Well, I had to take to the Acropolis, the Parthenon, I took them all around Athens. I showed them the prison of Socrates, allegedly, where he was corrupting the youth, so they threw him in the jail. So I took them there. I took them all around Athens and showed them all the ruins of Athens.
Very cool.
And then we went to this year. I took them to the ancient. There's an ancient amphitheater with the acoustics are. I can't. It's an outdoor theater, 10,000 people fit. I forget the name exactly how to pronounce it. Epidaros, I think it is. It's in the middle of nowhere mountain, right outside a town called Nafplion, about a half an hour, 40 minutes or so. And it is an incredible amphitheater, all marble. Again, you could say these guys were slaves and they carried. There's no way. There's nothing around. I don't know where you got all this rock from. It's perfectly carved. So I took them there. But the thing about it is I always say, I always challenge them and say, how do you think they did this? How do you think they got all these rocks here, all these blocks? I said, what does that look like to you? How do you think they got it? I'm like, yeah. And then they start to theorize themselves. So maybe there were guys that just, carried rocks with ropes, and guys got a toga on with some sandals, and they're like, yeah, we can. We're drinking ouzo and drinking beer, and like, yeah, let's build this awesome amphitheater, and we could all sing there one night, and they're all drunk. Yeah, maybe that did happen, but come on, man, let's be realistic.
You'd at least need some steel-toed boots or something.
You're lifting a 200,000-pound block with your sandals on. Let's be serious.
I was just thinking about all the poor Greek and Roman toes that must have been completely obliterated, because you're right, they didn't have steel shoes back then. They moved a lot of rocks around.
Yeah, there'd be like a town. There would be like a town in Greece with everybody's missing their fingertips because they dropped a 200,000-pound stone. So there would be like 50,000 guys with like missing a pinky.
Yeah,
right. No hard hats, nothing.
No hard hats, no gloves. Okay, no gloves, no steel. You had sandals. Everything fine,
So besides like my limited knowledge of Greek food is gyros. Are the gyros we have here even comparable to what's over there? Or do they even do gyros in Greece?
Yeah, they do stacked meat.
Okay.
So they'll have thin stacks of pork or chicken or whatever. Here we make it like a mix of different meats together. And they do it that way, and they put it on the spit. But there they have the spit, and they just stack pieces of meat, and they cut the stack of meat. So it's the same concept, but here they use it would be like chopped meat kind of thing, lamb meat, spices, and they put it. But it's the same concept. A gyro means you're turning it on a spit. So yeah, they'll take for instance, let's say like pieces of pig or ham. Let's use ham. You just stack pieces of ham on a spit on a thing like this, and it's this big, and then you turn it around the fire, charcoal, whatever, and you just cut pieces off after it cooks. So yeah, it's the same kind of concept.
Do you have a favorite Greek food?
Yeah, all of it.
All of it. Nice.
Spinach pie, spanakopita, spinach pie, cheese pie, which is diropita, lamb chops, all of that. But Greek salads, you name it, we either try to make it or eat it.
I'm looking up Greek cheese pie now because that sounds amazing, and I'm going to try to make some.
Yeah, the Greek cheese pies, the diropita is one of my favorites.
Well, this was a really fun interview. Dave and I are not really expert researchers at any one particular area, but we think it's important to normalize the ideas and voices of alternative researchers and writers, because it's time to make it a part of the conversation.
Absolutely. That's why I began my work with the Institute, to help in any way I could. I'm not a typical researcher, so to speak. I'm more of an artist, writer, amateur philosopher. And the Institute presented me an outlet to put some of my theories. So being the fact that I do a lot of the graphic design and I have products and that I sell a lot of the products online, this was great because now I can offer some of my products and my designs in that industry, let's say, or that realm.
Yep.
So I was able to incorporate a lot of the things that I do, my beliefs, and even asking different questions and questioning things.
Mhm.
That's what they were doing. So I appreciated that because I was able to also learn, like, hey, these are some of my theories. Be like, oh yeah, that's interesting, and they weren't like, oh yeah, you're crazy, get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big difference because in college I was crazy. What are you talking about?
Right.
Like, what are you talking about? Like you weren't there.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like you weren't there. You don't know. This is what you read when you were 25, and you're telling me the same thing, and you weren't there. You don't know. You're telling me about Greece. You've never been there. You don't even know. So this institute provided me with, hey, this is my theory, or this is what I think, and they're like, yeah, why not? I mean, that was refreshing to me,
Yep.
and that's why this realm, this alternative history, that research, writing, it's alternative theory where people are like-minded and want to discuss ideas, theories, and philosophies that are different than the mainstream. And to
Yep.
me, that's exactly what I was interested in. So that's why I participated. And that's why I participate in all this, because none of my theories could be right.
Right.
They could all be right, but no one would even know unless we could discuss it and try to figure it. Maybe someone has a better theory, or maybe part of my theory or my idea or even my artwork fits in somewhere else, and it makes it correct or accurate or whatever.
Well, and pursuing the truth, seeking the truth means that you're willing to change your ideas as you find more information. That's why I think it's great to find people in this space that are pursuing the truth and trying to gather more information and knowledge. And they might tell you, hey, a few years down the road, more information, I think something different now, versus people that tell you that they know everything today. And that's why you should think that.
Yeah, and this community you're talking about in the Institute for Natural Philosophy and Pharos magazine and that kind of thing, they're extremely inviting and welcoming to new ideas, and that's what was so attractive about it to me as well. So that's how, and for those of you who don't know, that's how we met. We met George and got connected with George and got him on the show. So.
No, absolutely. I appreciate it, and that's I love participating in these type of discussions. I think it's great, and it's necessary. Actually, you can't progress as a species if you're stuck with this is the way that it is. Too bad. This is the way it is, whether you like it or not. This is how it was written.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not how things work. Okay,
Right.
and whether, like I said, whether it's a control mechanism to control you for money, power, or like I said, because humans aren't capable of actually understanding it, okay, or that humans would take advantage of it, or people would hurt each other more with it, or maybe not even, maybe more optimistic, it would make it for a hugely better society, and it's all evil, and they don't want you to have any of it. So, however you want to look at it, what you see is not the way that it is. I think a lot of it is hidden for whatever reason. That's not, that's only for me to theorize. But I know but I think a lot of people know something's just not right.
Oh yeah,
that's frustrating, but also exciting, and at the same time, because I feel like there's so much more we can find out, but we also want to know right now.
Well, look, they start wars for absolute, whatever the reason is for starting a war is not what you were told it was. So
Definitely not.
Exactly. You're going to war and you're killing millions of people. Okay. Not just on one occasion, but you continuously do it. And you say, oh, this is the reason. And then 10 years later, like, okay, there was no weapons of mass destruction there. So, you just put all these people in harm's way based off of a lie. And you killed 1 million Iraqi people or whatever it was. And it's like, yeah, whatever, we lie. What are you talking? What do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? Like, don't even ask anybody. So nobody's held accountable. No one can, and then it's unsustainable is what it is.
It better be, because people are starting to wake up.
Yeah, good.
Dominoes is starting to fall, but any institution, if they would lie about something like that, what else would they lie about to you? There's nothing they
Exactly.
don't lie about.
You lied about war. Okay, you lied about there's millions of people being killed around the world, and you're lying about that. So what exactly right? What else are you lying about? What else are you hiding? What do you have hidden in the basement of the Pentagon or the what's been hidden down? So that's why people like us start to question, because wait a minute, you just lied and killed all these people. Okay, not only once, but you go back to Vietnam, they did the same thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They ran the same freaking playbook. They ran the same playbook they did. They ran the same exact, and they're going to run it again. They're going to keep running it again until someone stops them. And they have all the power, so to stop them, it's going to be tough.
That's why conversations like this are important, and that's why we are so glad to have you on the show today, George, for the second time. You're welcome to come back on our live stream anytime as well. If we got fun topics, we think you'll be a good addition to. But again, thank you so much for coming on the show. And
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me. This is great. Love to be on the live show. Again, maybe month, 2 months, whenever it is, just not in August, because I'm out of here.
Got it. No worries.
Well, it was great talking to you today. Thanks to everybody who watched the show, and thanks for coming on, George.
Have a great day. Thanks.